Your first 6 months playing guitar are critical. Why? Well, it's not what most people think. And, I could drag this out and give you an answer 8 minutes from now just to run up my YouTube view minutes and be one of those YouTubers. But if you've been to this channel, you know I'm not that guy. I try to get right to the flipping point. So let's just watch this spiffy intro I made, and then we'll get right into the beginning of your guitar journey. Why are the first 6 months critical? That's the question I left hanging there. And the worry of most players is that they're going to somehow practice the wrong thing and get to a point where they're trying to do maybe songs they love or whatnot and not be able to do them because they just didn't do the right things at first. It ain't that. What you learn at first is so critical more because so many people lose interest in those first 6 months that they just put the guitar down and never get to become the player that they could have been. No matter what style of music you want to learn, there are basic building blocks that you need to put together to just basically be proficient at the guitar and move into that style. But there's also the matter of not being bored out of your skull, just working on these exercises and things and theory and whatnot that just, when you play it, sounds like a stew of random notes being mixed up. When I have a student who's brand new to guitar and they're coming in for their first lessons, I break those lessons up into 2 sections. And the first half of each lesson is those building blocks and the things they need to do to have the fundamentals down so that they can launch into whatever style it is that they're interested in. And those techniques and basics, the fundamentals, we are going to go into in this video. But I also want to make the important point of the second half of the lesson that I teach each one of those students. And this is something I wish I could do with everyone here, but it's difficult to do unless you're in person with someone and you can go back and forth. But I'll come back to that. It's something we can try. And that second part of the lesson for new students is working on songs that they like, working on the reasons that they want to play guitar in the first place, what made them pick it up. And usually it's not going to be working on an entire song. Every time it's not going to be working on an entire song. It's just bits and pieces of songs that you or each student like. And that's why there's kind of a feedback type of thing required where I meet with the student, they talk about a song that they love, and I listen through it, and I can tell which parts of it they can actually kind of try to get as a new student, rather than picking the wrong parts of the song that you shouldn't even be working on when you're first starting playing. And yes, you're just picking up the instrument, you're going to fumble through it, it's going to sound awful, but that's okay. You're going to get excited because you get little pieces of it right. And here, on a YouTube channel, we can't do that kind of back and forth, real time anyway. But if you're seeing this video and you're just starting out for the first time and there are some songs you want to learn, I would encourage you to post it in the comments, ask me about a song or two, and I can pick out the sections for you that might be okay to just kind of slog through at first when you haven't even barely played the guitar yet and you're just going to be working on these exercises that we talk about next. Anyway, the important points from that are twofold. One, that realize that it's going to be okay to play it absolutely horribly, whatever it is that the piece of the song is that you're going to work on. It's going to stink for a while. No problem. And 2, understand that it's also very okay to only learn tiny parts of a whole bunch of songs that you like and not try to get through an entire song at first. That's too much. Just learn a couple riffs here and there, and it's going to be exciting to know just those things. Okay, now that we've covered the stay interested part of learning the guitar, let's get into those fundamentals. And I have basically 3 different exercises that brand new guitarists are going to learn that are going to be all the building blocks you need to move into the next phase. Now, the first exercise is just learning a basic open chord progression. And if you're going to be like a metal or hard rock player, eventually you're not going to do a lot of that. You're going to be playing bar and power chords, things that look different than this. They're not really acoustic type of chords. But these are still important to learn at first because they really get your hand learning to cooperate, use your fingertips properly, and get some accuracy strumming with your right hand so you're strumming the strings that you want to strum and not just making a mess and hitting the wrong strings. And if you're playing most other styles of music, you're going to use a lot more of the open chords, so you definitely want to dive into this. Now, before we actually play the chords, there's some nomenclature that we need to talk about here. Nomenclature. Am I even using the right word? I don't know. I just make stuff up. You need to know what we're numbering the fingers. This is your first finger, your pointer finger, second finger, third finger, fourth finger, and thumb, of course. So when I talk about which finger you're going to put in a certain part of the guitar, you have to know those numbers. The numbers of the strings are from the highest, the furthest away from you, closest to the floor, up towards you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A little bit counterintuitive there. Most people want to count closest to furthest, but it's furthest to closest. And then the frets, of course, are just the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as you go up. You count individually. If you're not playing a fret, it's called open. That's why these chords are called open chords. There's open strings in the chords. So that first chord is going to be a G chord. And this one has you putting either your pinky or third finger, whichever you're more comfortable with. I'm going to use my pinky, the 3rd fret of the 1st string. So it's your 4th finger. And then way up, all the way over here, across the guitar onto the 6th string, I'm going to play the same fret, either 2nd or 3rd finger. So I've got these 2 notes, they're G notes. And then the one that becomes a little difficult when you're beginning is to get a clear note. This is the 2nd fret of the 5th string. So, see, clunk, that's what you're going to hear a lot of. So, but what the problem is going to be for most beginning players is that this finger here on the 6th string ends up, you kind of play it a little bit flat. You're not using your fingertip and you block your way out of that 5th string, the other note, and you get like a dead note there. So this is going to teach you to really get your fingertips in the proper place and get a clean, clear chord. That's the G chord. The second chord in the progression is going to be the E minor chord. This one is probably the easiest to play. It's just 2 notes on the 4th string. I'm playing the 2nd fret and the same fret on the 5th string, and then I'm playing all the strings. You can see my thumb's like not even pressing against the guitar here. It's mostly the palm of my hand. It's a pretty easy chord to get. The next chord is the one that's going to frustrate you the most at first. It's a C. You have an open E string, then the 1st fret of the 2nd string, then an open G string, and then the 4th fret of the D string, and then the 5th fret, the 3rd fret of the 5th string. This looks like a little staircase leading up here. And you don't play the 6th string, so you have to teach your right hand to not just strum everything, but only strum those notes. That's a C major chord. And then the last chord is a D chord, and you're going to play the 2nd fret of the 1st string with your 2nd finger, 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and first finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and then you have an open 4th string. You're only playing 4 strings now. And so what I have my students do once they get all these kind of down a little bit and they feel a little comfortable is just strum each one 4 times. You know, it's kind of music. Very first thing all my students learn, and it's just teaching you to use your fingertips and get your fingers out of each other's way and do some basic chord switching, get some dexterity. Now you should work on this for no more than 10 minutes at a time and then move on to the next thing, which is number 2. Now this number 2 thing is simple, straight finger dexterity practice and syncing up your right and left hand, and it sounds awful. There's nothing musical about this. But it's something that is important to get for all the phases that are coming later. And that is, it's called chromatic. Chromatic means you're going just in order of the frets. You're not skipping any notes or frets. And I'm playing 1 string at a time. Now, the important thing there are 2 important takeaways you want to take here. One is about holding the pick the right way so you don't have a whole lot of pick hanging out and it's floppy. I'll throw up a picture here of like what's the right way and the wrong way. And 2 is to keep your left hand relaxed when you're doing this. I'm going to do this on the 7th fret for you and show it to you. I start higher with new students because when you're first learning, it's a little bit harder to press down the strings at the top of the guitar, as you'll see when you're playing those open chords. And I don't want to stress out your hands and cause extra pain. So we're going to start this here on the 7th fret, and you're just going to go on the 1st string, starting with the 1st finger, and use each finger. 7, 8, 9, 10, 9, 8. Just. And you're going to do that 3 or 4 times on that string. Then you're going to do it on the next string. And it's going to be really difficult, and just playing it with any speed at all is going to feel weird. But in a couple weeks, it's going to be pretty easy. And once you feel comfortable fretting it there on the 7th, go down to the 6th, 5th, work your way down to where you're playing it on the 1st fret. And it doesn't give you too much difficulty. It doesn't take too much strength. This is going to set you up if you're doing any kind of lead playing or any kind of lead parts in between chords where you're connecting things. You have to know how to work 1 string at a time and be coordinated and have the dexterity for that. Now again, don't do this for more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. Now the third thing is to help build the fundamentals for when you move on to playing what's called barre chords. Chords that are not just in this first position here where you have open notes, but rather chords where you're playing way up the neck. You have to be able to hold multiple strings with 1 finger. And so we're not actually playing what would be considered the chords themselves. You're just playing the bar and getting the strength to hold it down, getting your thumb in there and your first finger. And you're going to work on getting to the point where you can just play one whole fret barred where every note works. And you're going to make sure that when you play the bar chord, it's like kind of on the side of your first finger. You're not flat like this. You've turned it almost a 45-degree angle, and then you just pinch it between your thumb and your first finger. And so for when you're very first starting on guitar, you're going to have like a lot of not be able to get them, and that's okay. It's going to take you some time to build up the strength and accuracy. Also a note is where to bar the chord is closest to the fret, the metal fret itself, furthest towards your picking hand. And I just want you to get to the point where each one of those notes rings out and you're comfortable doing it and you have the strength to do it and you've built up the calluses so it doesn't hurt too much. Start on the 7th and again, work your way back until you're comfortable doing it way down here on the 1st fret and you have the strength for it. This is a thing where a lot of players get stuck when they move on to the next phase of their playing. If they haven't built up the strength for the bar chords and they start moving into songs and things where they have to learn bar chords, they get so frustrated that they quit. So I want you to have that strength start it being built right from day one. And again, I'm going to tell you that the same thing I've been saying all along, no more than 5 or 10 minutes at a time. This is a crucial aspect of your learning experience, is that you will learn much faster if you work in 5 or 10 minute bursts of each one of the exercises that you're working on and do that 3, 4, 5 times a day, whatever it is. You will learn much quicker if you do that than if you try to do 30 minutes at a time, once a day of each. So those are the 3 main things that I want new students on their first 6 months of their journey to really learn and get down. I know we haven't talked about any kind of theory, how to read music, chord charts, what the names of the notes are, any of that intellectual part of playing the guitar, and that can really make some teachers cringe. But I've also seen a lot of local music schools with turnover like 50% or more in students because they lose interest at first and they're not doing things that they want to be doing and they're just focused on studying on it like it's some kind of algebra class. If a student really wants to know that stuff at first, I'm all for it and I'll teach them. But in most cases, they just kind of want to get to playing music, and then we talk about a lot of the theory and knowledge parts of playing guitar and the next phase of your learning when you can actually make some music on the guitar, can enjoy playing it, and then there's context for what that knowledge means. That said, please check the description below. I'm going to throw up a bunch of links for like how to read tab and how to read chord diagrams and some of those things that you might want to get into now if you want to, or later as you want to learn more about how the guitar actually works and how the theory works. Well guys, if you're brand new to this, I'm really excited for you. I hope that your journey into learning guitar is an enjoyable one. I hope that what I've told you here helps and it makes that journey, that part of your journey, more fruitful and fun, and that you get to that second 6 months and that next phase of learning guitar. Remember that everyone learns at a different pace, and remember why you picked up guitar in the first place, and don't lose sight of that, what you want to accomplish on it and what's going to make it enjoyable for you. And until the next one, it's time to start making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.